September 17th, where are we at as of today? Let's see. We have students coming back in every building. We have 10 schools, and we are in our phase-in process, which started on September 14th. It's a 4-week phase-in process where we bring small groups of students into the building and staff so that they can get accustomed to the protocols and the health and safety requirements, such as 6-foot social distancing, mask wearing, washing hands, practicing eating lunches in the classroom, and that kind of thing. It's a pretty complicated process and difficult to understand for everyone, I think. So we're phasing into our hybrid plan. And let me first explain what the hybrid plan is. Hybrid is when you bring half of your students into the building and the other half are home learning remotely, and then you flip-flop the weeks, essentially. That's the way we've done it in Lexington. Other people have different variations, and it varies by community. But we're basically a week on, week off, with half our student population. The phase-in plan to the hybrid, it started on September 14th, and everyone began remotely unless they were in their phase-in period. And we have an orientation period which is called Lex Connect. And kids are coming in and meeting their teachers, building the relationships that are going to be critical to, get them throughout the year. And the idea is that they experience this new life after 6 months of being, home learning in a pandemic, and learn the new ways and behaviors that are needed to keep us all safe so that we can have a sustainable plan for the future. And the different grade levels will come in during different weeks. So we phase them in group by group. And the idea is that after a 4-week period of time, we'll be fully engaged in our hybrid model. We have 2 different cohorts, Cohort A and Cohort B. And if you're a Cohort A student, you would only be with your Cohort A peers in person. But there are ways and opportunities to engage remotely that are still being explored. One of the questions I got from students when I had superintendent chats at the end of the school year was, how am I going to see my friends if we're in the hybrid model? So they were very interested in knowing, if I'm assigned to Cohort A, how do I see my Cohort B buddy? And we're working out details and ways that kids can stay engaged. But the essential idea is that students would stay with their cohort and they don't mix or commingle because of the safety and health requirements that we have in place. The timeline question is the magic question for everyone. What is the timeline, and what are the triggers that would engage us in remote or full learning? And it's a very difficult question to answer, but the plan right now, given the health metrics we see in the community, is to engage in hybrid until such time that it looks safe to return fully to school, or until such time that it looks like a remote only option is necessary. And we follow the health and safety metrics both from the state as well as the Harvard Global Health Institute to make those decisions. But I would say that the hybrid model is what we're going to be looking at for the foreseeable future. I would not be surprised if we at some point need to go into full remote, and we built our blueprint around that understanding. I would be really grateful if we could go back to full return and we were ready for it. I just think that's a long time in the making. Our planning process started in May, and when we had the remote emergency school closure in March, we began thinking about what was the following year going to look like, and we put together a planning team in May to start to address those questions. We were waiting for state guidance, and they continued to delay the guidance for obvious reasons. It's difficult to plan during a pandemic for everyone because there are so many moving parts. But we got a planning team together comprising educators, administrators, some community members gave feedback through a number of chats that we had, and basically the blueprint evolved by first, listening to the community, including students, staff, parents, about what worked well during the remote learning experience in the spring and what didn't work well, and designing a blueprint to address those concerns and give us hopefully a leg up this fall. So far it's going well, so we're optimistic. And then we issued multiple drafts for the community to weigh in on and comment, and we made very tangible and concrete changes to the draft so that people would understand that we were listening, and our planning process evolved in that way. My advice to parents would be, first of all, please try to be patient. It's really challenging, and we know that it's hard for our families as well. Our educators have learned a lot in the past few months, and I think they're doing a great job so far, but we will still have challenges and imperfections, and we even have to remind ourselves administratively and as educators that, oh, we're in a pandemic. We can't do everything with 100% perfection. We try our best. So we'll encounter a few bumps along the way, I'm sure. Parents should also feel confident in knowing that they don't have to have all the answers. I think what I heard last spring was people and families being really difficult to themselves, or hard on themselves, I should say, because they felt like they weren't able to give their child what they needed to be able to be successful. And I think this is hard for everyone. No one has figured this out perfectly. Children sleep in, they're experiencing new ways of doing things, and their biological rhythms have taken over, it seems like. And I think our families sometimes think, that they've let their child down, or there's something they're not doing that they should be doing. And I think everybody just needs to give themselves kind of a break, and to believe that, if we focus on the children's needs and understand that, being a positive influence in their lives will help them get through this, and that they're learning even when people think they're not. So one of the things that I find so interesting is that sometimes it's difficult for people to understand the invaluable lessons that occur through these challenges. So, things like self-advocacy and self-reliance, and, understanding how to care for one another, having empathy for people, are lessons that I don't think we would learn perhaps as quickly in a traditional environment and setting. So really kind of focusing optimistically on what's good about this pandemic, which is so counterintuitive, would be my advice to families. And I think people have tried to do that and are doing a great job and doing a great service to their children when they're able to think that way. We actually are planning events and fall sports even, which was a scary conversation, to be honest, at first, because there were so many unknowns in that sense. But we worked together, we being the athletic director and I, with members of the Middlesex League. So we've put together some plans for modified fall sports. They won't look much like the sports that maybe you or I knew in school. They'll be quite different, but at least kids will be out getting fresh air, getting the chance to be as normal as possible during a pandemic. So let me see, we have soccer, but soccer looks nothing like soccer happening in the fall. We have the potential for volleyball to go outside, though we haven't quite closed the loop on that. Cross country, of course. I'm missing a few, but lots of sports in action, and also the clubs and activities. I get lots of questions about that, especially from students. They want to know if they'll be able to continue that, and the answer is yes. It also may look differently, so it might be a virtual club or activity if it's not safe to be in person. So for example, with performing arts and singing in particular, many studies about the harmful effects of having people together in groups and singing because of the aerosolization that's related to expelling droplets when you sing and project. But they can do it virtually, and kids are amazing. Even our graduation was virtual, and they sang, and it was just beautiful. So exploring what can be done safely in person and what can be done virtually is something that we've been doing, and our goal here is to really focus on our children's social, emotional health and well-being, and give them the opportunities that they need to thrive during what is no doubt a challenging time. Yeah, the inevitable is going to happen, and we're planning for that, of course. We do have protocols and procedures in our blueprint. We have staff manuals. There are very strict guidelines from the state and the CDC about contacting individuals related to the, who's a presumptive positive. We, for example, will go into quarantine if needed, and teachers will be asked to quarantine if there's an exposure issue. And so we anticipate that we'll encounter all of those challenges, and we have plans ready and in place to deal with it. And sometimes I get the question, why are you doing this with all these challenges? Why not just do remote? And I think the best response I can give to that question is because I think that this is a long-term problem. I don't think this is going away soon. I don't think it's feasible or good for kids to be isolated for so long. And so finding ways to find that balance so that kids can engage safely in an environment seems critical. I walked through the buildings this week and got to talk to some students, watch them eat lunch, and just asked how they were doing. And they're amazing, and our staff members are amazing, and they were just so happy to be back in whatever form school looks like. So we're hoping that our protocols and procedures will help us have a long-term sustainable plan so that we can do this safely for the balance of the year.